Hi, this is Jacob Hushaw. This is my presentation for the Highway Toons application created in CST-339 at Grand Canyon University. The objective for this application was to create a website where users could log and register, as well as add, view, and manage different products that are saved to the database in our application. Users should be able to log in and register, and this should be done through the Spring Security Framework using a repository as well as the MySQL database. Users should be able to create products, view the products, as well as manage the products, such as editing previous listed products or deleting them. There will be a REST API implemented so that we will be able to produce our products in a JSON format for other users to see or other applications to consume. The application will be hosted through a cloud service provider such as Heroku or Azure. Page security will be implemented through the Spring Security Framework, and we want to follow the MVC and N-layer architecture. For the functional overview, our focus was to give users an experience that allows them to list and manage their cars that are for sale on our web application, as well as browse other cars that other users have listed that are for sale. Users should be able to create an account through our site, uploading and managing details about their cars, as well as view existing cars in the database. Just a technology overview, we decided to use the Java Spring Boot framework because, one, it was a class requirement, as well as my favorite web framework. This was used for our backend as well as front-end design. We used Timeleaf to handle passing models between views. All UI was designed through Bootstrap Studio, and we used MySQL Workbench to design the database, and we hosted it through JawsDB on Heroku. We used Spring Data to access the database, as well as Spring Security to secure the application. API design and documentation was done through Swagger, and all API testing was done through Postman. Our source control, we used GitHub to manage and collaborate with our teammates, as well as host the application through the cloud service provider Heroku. The core design patterns we followed were MVC and N-layer architecture. This allowed us to kind of separate our concerns of the presentation layer, business logic, as well as data access layer. For our UI design, we wanted to keep it pretty simple, so we used Bootstrap Studio to design just a beautiful website because I'm really not a CSS guy, and Bootstrap to create the forms on the website, as well as the nav bar that we use. The nav bar allows for simple navigation, where users are able to access every view they need to through our nav bar. And UI design was done through, first we created our wireframes, and we also created a sitemap to design the flow of how users will be able to walk through our application. As you can see on the right, this is our sitemap, and down below are some of the wireframes created before we started design on the application. For our technical design decisions, we decided to use an agile project management approach. This allowed us to separate the development into 8 different sprints. We were able to create issues and add them to our product backlog, take these issues and put them into the 8 different sprints in a way that allows us to kind of keep our hourly work similar throughout each sprint. And then we were also able to hold stand-up meetings before we started development, as well as after, to discuss what went well and what we should do next time to make development more efficient. Our front end was designed using Bootstrap Studio, as I mentioned before. We followed the M-layered architecture to separate our controllers, routing views, and as well as the business logic and data access logic. We used Spring Boot for the application, as mentioned before. We decided to do object-oriented. If you want to see all of the objects that are used in the application, here's our UMLs over on the right. Up top is all the user UMLs, and below is our product UMLs. We decided to use MVC architecture to separate models, views, and controllers. You're allowed to pass models from between views using our controllers. And we collaborated through GitHub and GitHub Desktop. As I mentioned before, all API design, documentation, and testing was done through Postman, and the design documentation was through Swagger. Just do a quick demo of all the functionality of the application. So if we head over to our website, which is hosted on Heroku, you see highwaytoons.com. When you first access the website, you're hit with the landing page that tells you a little bit about Highway Tunes and what the application is, as well as some info below and our footer below. The nav bar allows you to kind of navigate between login and registration, as well as we also have our API documentation here. So let's go ahead and do a registration first. We're able to use form validation. So you can see if we try to register without anything in here, we are hit with a list of errors at the bottom of what we must fix. So if we reload this page and create a new user, let's call this user, we'll just call him Hushaw, which is my last name, and first name of, let's do my sister, Natalie Hushaw, nhushaw at g.com. We'll do a phone number for her and a password of Natalie. If we hit register, you can see we're sent to our login page with a registered successfully message, and please log in. This also has form validation, so if we hit register, you can see we have an invalid username or password, and if we just enter in some bogus, we're hit with the same message, invalid username or password. So we can log in with that new user we just created. And once we log in, we're sent to our home page, which in the future will have some details about the site and what you can do with the site with more info and other things like that. The nav bar has now changed to show the add car and view all pages. So let's go ahead and first add a car. This also has form validation, so if we hit register, we get a fat list of errors. But if we reload this and create a new car, let's make a Mercedes. So let's do a 2018 Mercedes S-Class with, let's say it only has 20,300 miles on it. We'll call this a beautiful car, and let's set a price of $100,999. We hit add new car. You can see we were hit with a confirmation that this car was added and created to the website. And now we can go ahead and click the view all cars. And now you can see the cars that are listed in here right now. We have 3 cars available. In the future, we want to implement it so that users can only have an option where they can see their cars that are listed as well as view other cars, and as well as have the users not be able to update or delete cars that they did not add to the website. So if we first hit, let's go ahead and check out the details of this car we just added. We're hit with a nice little view of the details of the car. We can go back and we can update this car. Let's say we drove a little bit after we listed it for sale and we need to update the mileage. So now it has 100,000 and 100,001 miles on it. And let's say the year, for some reason, it's now a 2019 car. We hit update. You can see the car was successfully updated, and if we go back to view all cars, you can see it's now a 2019 with that many miles, or the price on it is now that. We also have the option to delete a car, so let's go ahead and delete the car we just added. And car deletion was confirmed, and if we go back, it is now no longer listed in our table. Once we log out, you can see Spring Security will send us back to the login page, and we can go ahead and check out the API documentation. This was created through Swagger, as mentioned before, and all it does is give you a list of the 2 APIs we have, what they produce, and how to access them, as well as what parameters can be implemented. So this would be an ID of a car to access one car, and this is how you would get all cars. We also have the model, what the object will look like when it's given to you in a JSON format. So this API requires authentication. So if we try to access this, we get sent back to the login page. So if we log back into that user we created, we now will be able to access the API. So let's go ahead and get all the cars in the database. You see we're hit with a list of cars in JSON format. So this is ID 1, and here's ID 2. Here's the Porsche. So if we want to get one of the cars in JSON format, we can enter an ID of 2. You can see we just get the one car, that Porsche that we had with the ID of 2. That is pretty much all the functionality. Every page is also hit with Spring Security. So if we try to go to the home page, we get sent back to login if we're logged out. That is pretty much all the functionality for the application. Some project limitations and known issues we have right now. So just some limitations we had were time constraints. We only had about 4 to 5 months to create this application, as well as this was a new technology, Spring Boot, the framework, and we had to learn a lot of new things as we went along. In the future, we want to kind of implement the ability to only see your own cars, as I mentioned before, and not be able to edit and update other cars. Some known issues right now is if you create or register a user with the same username as a previously registered user, it'll allow you to do this. But when you do that, you're not allowed to log in with that username, even if they have different passwords. Another issue is the nav bar bleeding. As you saw, the nav bar kind of bleeds into our um, um, the page itself, so that looks pretty bad. And right now, users can also edit and delete other users' cars. In closing, if you want to check out the application, here is the link to the Heroku app, and here's the GitHub. This is a private repository at the moment, so you should not be able to see any of the code, but if you have access, you can head to there. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments, and thank you for watching.